Steve McQueen was sitting at his breakfast table in his Beverly Hills home, coffee growing cold as he skimmed the morning trades. Another day, another stack of scripts his agent wanted him to consider. Another pile of fan mail his secretary had left on the corner of his desk like an afterthought. Most stars loved fan mail. Steve McQueen found it suffocating. He glanced at the stack dismissively. Hundreds of letters from people who thought they knew him, who saw him as some kind of hero because he drove fast cars and looked cool doing it. They didn't know the real Steve McQueen, the one who couldn't sleep at night, who pushed everyone away, who built walls so high that even his closest friends couldn't scale them. He was about to sweep the entire pile into the wastebasket when something caught his eye. One letter, right in the middle of the stack, had something different about it. An orange ribbon. Not fancy, not expensive. Just a simple orange ribbon tied carefully around a plain white envelope. Steve McQueen stopped. In 15 years of Hollywood stardom, through thousands of fan letters, he'd never seen anyone tie a ribbon around their letter. Cards, photos, gifts, sure. But a ribbon? Like it was a present. Like it mattered that much to someone. He picked up the letter. The paper was slightly wrinkled, like small hands had handled it many times before sealing it. The address was written in careful, childish handwriting. To the King of Cool, Mr. Steve McQueen. The return address showed Nevada, some place called Carson City. Steve almost put it back down. He had a meeting with his agent in an hour. Scripts to read. A life to live that didn't involve getting emotionally invested in strangers' problems. But the ribbon. Why would a kid tie a ribbon around a letter? Steve McQueen, the man who never hesitated on a motorcycle or behind the wheel of a race car, hesitated now. His fingers traced the orange silk. Then, slowly, he untied it. The letter inside was written on lined school paper, the kind with the blue margins. The handwriting was careful but shaky, like each word required tremendous effort. Dear Mr. McQueen, it began, my name is Tommy Patterson. I'm 11 years old and I live in Nevada. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but my mom says it's okay to hope for impossible things sometimes. Steve's jaw tightened. He'd read enough fan letters to know where this was going. Kid wants to meet a movie star. Parent encouraging false hope. He'd seen it 1,000 times, but he kept reading. I have leukemia. The doctors say I probably don't have very much time left. Maybe a few weeks. I know you're really busy and important, but I was wondering if maybe you might want to come visit me. We could play with cars and read comic books. I have the best comic book collection in Carson City. Well, my mom says so anyway. Steve's hand was shaking now. I know you probably get letters like this all the time from sick kids, but I wanted you to know that watching your movies makes me feel brave. When I'm scared about the treatments or about dying, I pretend I'm Steve McQueen. I pretend I'm not afraid of anything. Steve McQueen, the man who'd built his entire image on being fearless, felt fear crawling up his spine like ice water. I tied an orange ribbon around this letter because orange is my favorite color. It's the color of sunsets and pumpkins and the coolest race car I ever saw. I thought maybe if I made it special, you might notice it among all your other mail. The letter was signed simply, Your biggest fan, Tommy Patterson. P.S. Don't worry about bringing me anything. Just bringing yourself would be the best present ever. Steve McQueen sat in his Beverly Hills kitchen, holding a letter from a dying child, and for the first time in 20 years, he cried. Not the kind of crying you do at movies or funerals, the kind that comes from somewhere deep inside, from a place you didn't even know existed, the kind that shakes your whole body and makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. Steve McQueen had built his career on being untouchable, the cool guy who didn't need anyone, who lived by his own rules, who answered to nobody. He'd cultivated that image carefully, methodically. It was his armor, his protection against a world that wanted to consume him. But this letter, this orange ribbon, this dying boy in Nevada had just shattered that armor completely. Steve looked at his watch. His agent was expecting him in an hour to discuss a new film project. A big one. The kind that could define the next phase of his career. Millions of dollars on the line. Studio executives waiting for his answer. Instead, Steve McQueen picked up the phone and dialed information. "Carson City, Nevada," he said to the operator. "I need the number for University Medical Center." 20 minutes later, Steve was talking to Dr. Sarah Chen, the head of pediatric oncology at the hospital where Tommy Patterson was being treated. "Mr. McQueen?" Dr. Chen's voice was cautious. She'd probably gotten calls from cranks before, people pretending to be celebrities. "You're calling about Tommy Patterson." "I got his letter," Steve said. "How long does he have?" There was a long pause. "Mr. McQueen, if this really is you, I have to tell you that Tommy is very, very sick. We're doing everything we can, but—" "How long?" "Days, maybe a week if we're lucky." Steve closed his eyes. "I'll be there this afternoon." "Sir, I don't think you understand. Tommy is extremely fragile right now. Any excitement, any overstimulation could—" "Doctor," Steve interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. "That boy tied an orange ribbon around his letter because he wanted me to notice it. I noticed it, and I'm coming." Steve hung up the phone and immediately dialed his agent. "Steve, perfect timing." His agent's voice boomed through the receiver. "The studio just called. They want to move up the meeting. They're ready to talk serious money for this picture." "Cancel it." "What?" "Cancel the meeting. Cancel the picture. I'm going to Nevada." There was a stunned silence. "Steve, this is the biggest film of your career. You can't just leave. You can't just—" "Watch me." Steve hung up and went to his closet. "What do you wear to meet a dying child? What do you bring to a hospital room where hope goes to die?" He grabbed his leather jacket, then put it back. Too intimidating. He settled on a simple blue shirt and jeans. Then he went to his garage and selected something from his extensive collection of model cars. A bright orange Mustang. Like the ribbon. Like the sunset Tommy had written about. The flight to Nevada was the longest 2 hours of Steve McQueen's life. He'd flown to movie sets, to races, to premieres all over the world. But he'd never flown to meet a dying child who'd tied an orange ribbon around a letter because he wanted to be noticed. Carson City's University Medical Center was a small, understated building that smelled of disinfectant and hope. Steve walked through the automatic doors in his blue shirt and jeans, carrying a small orange model car, and felt more nervous than he'd ever felt before. A race or a difficult stunt. Dr. Chen met him at the nurses' station. She was younger than he'd expected, with kind eyes and tired shoulders. "Mr. McQueen," she said, extending her hand. "I have to admit, I didn't believe it was really you until I saw you walking down that hallway. How is he?" "Stable for now. But Mr. McQueen, I need you to understand something. Tommy doesn't know you're coming. We thought it was better not to get his hopes up in case—" "In case I didn't show up?" "People make promises to sick children all the time. Most of them don't keep those promises." Steve looked down the hallway toward the pediatric ward. Somewhere behind one of those doors was an 11-year-old boy who'd tied an orange ribbon around his dreams and mailed them to Hollywood. "Take me to him." Room 314 was at the end of the hallway. Dr. Chen knocked softly, then pushed the door open. "Tommy, there's someone here to see you." Steve McQueen stepped into the room and saw Tommy Patterson for the first time. He was small for 11, made smaller by the large hospital bed that seemed to swallow him whole. His head was bald from chemotherapy, but his eyes, when they met Steve's, were bright and alive and full of something that could only be described as joy. "Holy cow," Tommy whispered. "It's really you." Steve walked slowly to the bedside, pulling up a chair. "Hey there, Tommy. I got your letter." "You did? Really? The one with the orange ribbon. That was pretty smart, tying that ribbon on there. Made sure I'd notice it." Tommy's smile could have powered the entire hospital. "My mom helped me tie it. She said if something's important, you should make it special." "Your mom's a smart lady." Steve held up the model car. "I brought you something. Thought you might like this." Tommy's eyes went wide as he took the orange Mustang. It's perfect. It's exactly perfect. For the next 4 hours, Steve McQueen forgot he was a movie star. He completely forgot about the huge budget film deal he'd just brushed aside. He forgot about his image, his reputation, his carefully constructed walls. He was just Steve, sitting in a hospital room, playing with model cars with a boy who was dying. They raced cars across Tommy's bed sheets, making engine noises that made the nurses smile from the hallway. Tommy showed Steve his comic book collection, and Steve found himself genuinely interested in the adventures of Superman and Batman, as seen through the eyes of an 11-year-old. "You know what's funny?" Tommy said as they looked at a Superman comic together. "What's that?" "Superman's supposed to be the strongest guy in the world, but he can't save everyone, can he?" Steve looked at this wise, dying child and felt his heart break a little more. "No, buddy, he can't save everyone." "That's okay, though. I think maybe being a hero isn't about saving everyone. Maybe it's about showing up when someone needs you, even when it's hard." Steve McQueen, who'd spent his entire career playing heroes on screen, realized he was learning what it really meant to be one from an 11-year-old boy in a hospital bed. At 6 o'clock, Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway. "Mr. McQueen, I'm sorry, but visiting hours." "Can he stay for dinner?" Tommy asked quickly. "They're having Jell-O tonight. It's the good kind." Steve looked at Dr. Chen, who nodded slowly. "I'd love to stay for Jell-O." They ate red Jell-O from plastic containers and talked about motorcycles and movies and what it would be like to fly to the moon. Tommy was tired now, his energy flagging, but he fought sleep like he was fighting for every moment. "Steve," he said as the sun began to set outside his window. "Yeah, buddy?" "Thank you for coming. This was the best day I've ever had." Steve squeezed Tommy's small hand. "Mine too, Tommy. Mine too." Steve stayed until Tommy fell asleep, then sat in the chair beside his bed watching him breathe. Such a small thing. Breathing. Such a miraculous, fragile thing. Dr. Chen found him there at midnight. "Mr. McQueen, you should get some rest. There's a hotel nearby. How much longer does he really have?" Dr. Chen sat down in the other chair. "Maybe days. The disease is progressing very quickly now." Steve nodded, never taking his eyes off Tommy's sleeping face. "I'll be back tomorrow." And he was, and the day after that. For 6 days, Steve McQueen made the drive from his hotel to University Medical Center. For 6 days, he played with cars and read comics and listened to an 11-year-old boy talk about life and death with wisdom that humbled him. On the 7th day, Tommy Patterson died. Steve was holding his hand when it happened. Tommy just closed his eyes and stopped breathing, as if he'd simply decided to go to sleep and never wake up. Steve McQueen, the king of cool, sat in that hospital room and sobbed like a child. All the walls, all the armor, all the careful construction of his untouchable image crumbled in that moment. He cried for Tommy. He cried for himself. He cried for every person who'd ever tied an orange ribbon around their hopes and mailed them to someone who might care. Dr. Chen found him there an hour later, still holding Tommy's hand. "Mr. McQueen?" Steve looked up, his face streaked with tears. He was just a kid. He was, but he was a kid who got to spend his final days with his hero. You gave him that. Steve stood up slowly, his legs unsteady. "I need to make a phone call." That afternoon, Steve McQueen called his business manager with specific instructions. Was it that huge movie deal he left behind just to see Tommy? He wanted every penny of his fee donated to the American Cancer Society. Not just the fee from that film, but from his next 3 films as well. "Steve, that's an incredible fortune," said his manager, astonished. "A kid tied an orange ribbon around a letter because he wanted me to notice it," Steve said. "I noticed. Now I want to make sure other people notice too." Steve never spoke publicly about Tommy Patterson. He never used the story for publicity or to enhance his image. But word leaked out, as word always does in Hollywood. The story of Steve McQueen walking away from millions to sit with a dying child spread through the entertainment industry like wildfire. Not the sanitized version, but the real one. The story of a movie star who cried in a hospital room. The story of an orange ribbon that changed everything. Within weeks, donations to the American Cancer Society skyrocketed. Other celebrities began getting involved. Research funding increased. Awareness grew. Tommy Patterson's orange ribbon, tied carefully around a letter by an 11-year-old boy who just wanted to be noticed, had noticed something in return. It had noticed the human heart hiding behind Steve McQueen's cool exterior. And in doing so, it had started a wave of compassion that would save lives for decades to come. Steve McQueen made many more films after 1966. He won awards, broke box office records, and cemented his legend. But those who knew him said he was different after Nevada. Quieter, more thoughtful, more aware of the weight his fame carried and the responsibility that came with it. He never forgot Tommy Patterson, and he never threw away fan mail again. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes. Sometimes an orange ribbon tied with love can untie the hardest heart. And sometimes being noticed by someone who matters isn't about being famous at all. It's about being human. What letter in your life have you been ignoring that might change everything if you just took the time to open it?